Malaysian 370, contact Ho Chi Minh 120.9. Good night.
Good night, Malaysian 370.
Breaking news tonight, a Malaysia Airlines flight with 239 people on board, including 4 Americans, has gone missing.
Scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds."
Probably should have done a screen check. There we go, guys. Welcome to the live stream, everybody. Thank you for being here. Guys, TGIF, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, MH370X. Thank you. We Are the Change for that donation. Appreciate it, guys. Guys, we're going to get right into it tonight. We have so much to go through. So just real quick, accounting stuff. I spoke to Randall Carlson last night till pretty late. That podcast should be dropping maybe as soon as Sunday, if not early next week. That's the only reason why I did not react to the Hal Puthoff Joe Rogan interview. What? So, right after our live stream, or maybe the next day, whatever it was. Yeah, actually, it was right after our live stream. It leaked out that Hal Puthoff went on Joe Rogan. So, we're going to look at that interview today. We're going to talk about it. We're going to hit the talking points, see what he said, what he didn't say, etc. And also the same exact day, the science and technology hearing with Congress happened. And Eric Davis was there sitting next to Avi Loeb. Sitting next to Avi Loeb. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to look at some of that as well. We got a lot to go through, guys, tonight. So first thing, right off the bat, everybody, why did they make me do it? Why do they make me do this to them, chat? Everybody, I'm trying to beat the allegations that I'm not an asshole, that I'm not a mean guy, and then this shit happens. Then this shit happens, chat. You wake up and you go, huh? Let me fix this. You go, what the hell is this? Well, it turns out at this UFO hearing, which I didn't even really watch, except for the Eric Davis part, Lou Elizondo presents this picture here that you're seeing right here and says that this is that a pilot, that he's been given permission. He's been given permission to release this photo at this congressional hearing, that a pilot gave him this, and that it's supposedly of some type of metallic UFO, giant metallic UFO flying in the sky. You guys can probably guess how this is going to go down. It took about, I don't know, a few hours for people to realize that it's not actually a giant metallic UFO in the sky, and that they found they geolocated the spot like exactly with the exact like little paths and shit in the hills or mountain, whatever that is. And it turns out it's just some crop irrigation things. It only looked like a shadow because one of them was like wet or something like that, and the other one was dry. Are you kidding me, man? Like, this is the part where I look at this and I go, are you absolutely, like, that Lou Elizondo presented this picture to Congress, in front of Congress, in front of this big media hearing? And before anybody says any shit about, he made an honest mistake, every mainstream media already had pre-written articles ready to go about huge release of unpublished documented photo. It's actually insane how much mainstream articles were written about this random photo. before anybody did any checking on it at all. I couldn't even, like, I don't even want to dunk on these people. I really don't want to. But they are giving me absolutely no choice. How do I not react to something this stupid? And Lou Elizondo's response to this is sociopathic, man. His response is sociopathic. I could, like, okay. So basically, here's what he says. Like, someone gave him this photo that same day, and he didn't vet it. His excuse is he's incompetent. His excuse is his whole career he's been a counter intel person, and he did no vetting of a photo that he decided to show the world in front of Congress. That's his excuse? If you're going to do something this dumb, just at least admit, like, I screwed up. I shouldn't have shared the photo. I don't know what I was thinking. Why am I sharing something that I just got that day that's never been vetted? Why am I building it up to be something that is not at all and just get completely called out on it? And then the response. What is this? I'm actually going to read out the whole thing because I want to do it justice. Like, if I had done anything like this, people would just have ended me on social media. I would never have lived it down. As you know, I'm always first to admit mistakes. What? What do you mean you're first to admit mistakes? It sounds like you're not going to admit that you made a massive mistake. I'm the first to admit. If you were the first to admit mistakes, the first thing you would do right here is you say, I'm sorry I messed up. I don't even know why. This is three pages long or 3 images long, this message. This message only needs to be one sentence. Sorry I screwed up. I'll do better in the future. One sentence. That's all this had to be. How am I reading a diary here? Dear diary. This is what it sounds like. Dear diary, as you know, I'm always first to admit mistakes, but this is not one of those times. The facts regarding the photo I shared from the private photo, as I emphasized several times yesterday during the forum, are as follows. The specific photo had only just been provided to me by a private pilot that morning prior to the forum. The photo had not yet been vetted. The dimensions I quoted were per the pilot's own assessment of what he saw based on altitude and experience. The purpose of me showing the photo was to illustrate the need for civilian and commercial pilots to have a centralized reporting mechanism to report potential anomalous sightings. In this case, the pilot who took the photo using his own camera did not have a way to report what he believed was anomalous. What? What is this? What is he talking about here? He's like, none of this is my fault. It was the pilot's fault. He's the one that told me the numbers. It's like, he's the one that made me say those numbers. I can't imagine having this level of lack of self-awareness and lack of self-responsibility. Zero responsibility here. The pilot gave it to me. It's not my fault. I had to show it up there. I had to say that it was 5 miles wide. I don't even know how big he said it was, but obviously he said it was way bigger than it clearly is, right? Here we go. Once again, as I stated during the forum, I only received permission to release it that morning and only made it aware. If you say shit like, I only received permission to release it that morning, that makes it sound like you're getting it from the government. But you're not. You got it from some random dude. You don't need to say, I only got permission to release it that morning. Don't phrase it like that. You know what you're doing when you're phrasing it like that. When you're phrasing it like, I just got permission to release this photo, you're literally saying that's what you're saying is you got this from the government to release it. You're trying to say that it has credibility. And now you're backtracking on going, yep, I didn't do any research at all. It came from a private person, didn't come from any government. I never said it came from the government. Like, dude, this is just straight up bullshit. And everybody sees through it. Anybody believing this letter, you are just way too far into the cult. The cult of Lou Elizondo and his own personality or whatever weird shit he's got going on. Like, this should be the death knell to whatever this guy's objectives are in this community, which are still not even clear. What are Lou Elizondo's objectives in the UFO community? He should just say, here are my objectives point by point. What are those? Spread awareness of aliens? Is that number one? Well, what's number two? Get as much money as we can for our UAP disclosure fund? What are their objectives? Spread more awareness of aliens? You want to know the craziest shit about all this? I don't even know if I'm going to finish reading this, but is there even this weird debate about some random photo that Lou Elizondo was given? Why is nobody in this science and technology hearing demanding that the government show the evidence they already have? In this whole hearing, I listened to Avi Loeb speak for 30 minutes, basically just fundraising to try to get like funding for getting more data. Like, we're going to point cameras in the sky and just get more data to figure this thing out. And at the same time, Jeremy Corbell is interviewing a guy, I think his name's Matthew Brown, and he's supposedly the Immaculate Constellation whistleblower. That's the guy saying, we've got this huge repository of videos of UFOs, and we're just hiding it. Hundreds of videos. Why are these people not demanding the government just show us the videos they already have that they're saying that they're hiding from us? This whole thing makes no sense at all. Instead of Lou Elizondo being like, and I would love to show you an image right now because we're demanding the government shows more footage. Instead of saying that, he's literally taking photos from random people off the street just that he got that day and playing it off like it's some official leak of information. What are we supposed to actually think from this? Are we supposed to think that he's disinformation and he's just trying to discredit the entire UFO community? Or are we just supposed to think that he's incompetent? What are we supposed to think? I mean, I want to give him the benefit of the doubt. I actually don't know which one's worse. Two last thoughts on this. I'm not going to read the rest of his shit because I can't even stomach it, honestly. It's painful to listen to and read. And it's so cringe too. I don't know. Like, if these guys need help, I'm actually being genuine here. If these UFO people need help with social media, because clearly they do, clearly they have like no idea how to interact with people or prepare themselves for public appearances. Look, man, you know what? I'll give you a discount. Normally my consulting fees would be higher, but for you guys, just $200 an hour. Easy. That's cheap for you guys. Look at it. You guys are pulling in 25 grand for these whatever, you get special platinum membership shit. You can afford it. You guys need the help, and it would make a significant difference if they just literally work on their social media presence and just public appearances. Also, in the hearing, we literally couldn't hear anything. These are people that they're telling us aliens are here, and the government's working on this reverse engineered alien technology. They can't even figure out how to get the microphones to work on their live stream. They can't even figure out a basic live stream. Guys, $200 an hour is cheap. Cheap. Call me, chat. Call me. These are also the people here that these people that can't figure out a live stream, that can't understand or figure out social media, that think that they're looking at a giant frisbee UFO that's like a mile wide when it's actually just crop irrigations. These are the people's discernment that we're supposed to trust when they say the MH370 videos are fake, or I can't tell if those videos are real. Duh. We're looking at two videos of a still missing plane 11 years later, which just straight off the bat, no matter what we're looking at, if that's MH370, the hoaxer would have to have been psychic to know we're never going to find the plane later on. That's just the first requirement right off the bat. The hoaxer who's never come forward, who's let people make tens of thousands of dollars off these videos had to have been psychic to know that we never would have found the plane. The same people that can't even answer that question, they can't even discern when they're looking at crop irrigation patterns or giant flying saucers. So respectfully or not respectfully, whatever the hell, it's insane how many people really have no discernment of reality whatsoever, like zero. And if you think that this is biased towards the alien believers, it's not. The debunker people are just as bad, just zero discernment. Some people can't tell when something's fake. Other people can't tell when something's real. We're just in a straight up shit show. The last thought on it is the amount of unforced errors coming from woke disclosure crew, the Lou Elizondo, Gary Nolan, Chris Mellon, you know, they're literally the people that are like the board of directors on these UFO disclosure fund and all this stuff. The amount of unforced errors coming from these people is through the roof. I don't have to do anything. We don't have to do shit. We can literally now just sit back, put that shit on cruise control, and just wait for these people to just keep making mistakes. They're just turning the ball over left and right. They're just turning it over. Unforced errors. We're not doing anything. Like, okay, I guess we'll dunk on you again. And the thing is, people are shifting towards our side, not their side. People are going, why am I listening to these dudes trying to tell me it's all about aliens and that we can't understand this technology? When I got this other dude and this other group of people going, no, we understand the technology. We'll explain to you the science and how it works. And they've been hiding this shit for a really, really, really long time. And people will go towards that. They say, yeah, that's the stuff that will change. That's the stuff that will change my life. Not stuff about aliens. By the way, chat, cheers. Oh, I haven't had a drink in a while. Here we go. And by drink, obviously, this is a sparkling apple juice, clearly. Okay. Let me hit a couple of these donos. Wayona Riders, thank you. And yes, we are the change. I appreciate it. So yeah, the MH370 videos are basically kryptonite to these woke disclosure people that have this. It's obvious at this point, like I can't even watch their shit anymore because the propaganda, like it's kind of actually like during COVID when you start to realize that all the shit you're hearing on these like daily briefings and stuff that happens is all bullshit. That's how I feel when I watch these UFO hearings with the same woke disclosure people every time. The MH370 videos are literally kryptonite to them. They can't address them because if they do, they give attention to them and more people get drawn towards them. But every minute they don't address them, the videos basically just sap credibility from them. Like, it's crazy watching how much credibility has been lost from like Ross Coulthart, even Lou Elizondo, although Lou Elizondo, that's his own fault. But like when Ross Coulthart came out against the videos, people like don't either they know they're going to get backlash, but they don't realize how powerful the backlash is because it's not about my credibility that they're attacking. They're attacking my credibility, but the weight of the evidence isn't based on my credibility. And that's their problem. So every time they attack me, everybody jumps on them and goes, well, you didn't even attack the argument. Most times people say that I think it's aliens that zapped the plane. And most people just go, he didn't even say that at all. So it's crazy how those videos are just... That's going to be some pretty crazy ASMR, by the way. Sapping the credibility of these people. And so, like I said, we don't have to do anything. We can just sit back and watch. And then just wait for them to mess up. And then just keep hammering them. And as time goes on, more and more people will come to realize that teleportation is not that crazy. And the science is going to keep coming out and keep supporting it. Just as it did, there was a brand new video today that I just shared about quantum teleportation. So in fact, let's watch that real quick. It's only a minute.
This time, Alice doesn't even have to travel to Bob to collect an entangled particle. The quantum vacuum at her location is already entangled with the vacuum at Bob. She could make a measurement and send the results of that measurement to Bob by classical channels, and Bob can use that information to extract real energy. let's look at what the quantum fields are actually doing in the QET protocol. As I mentioned earlier, we can think of the quantum vacuum as being made up of every possible frequency mode, which together cancel each other out to yield the apparent emptiness, zero average energy, observed on large scales. But this balance can be disturbed. It's disturbed by black holes to produce positive energy outside the black hole and negative within. That's Hawking radiation. And it's disturbed by the measurements made by Alice and Bob. Alice's measurement yields a positive energy, and that means she has injected energy into the vacuum. She disturbed the vacuum, so the underlying vibrational modes no longer cancel, but rather yield an excited state. Bob then uses the information from Alice's measurement to tune his own measurement, which ensures that he sees the vibrational modes that were depleted to power Alice's excitation. Bob sees a negative energy density in the vacuum and finds that the missing energy is now in his measuring device.
So right there, listen to what they said and how that was explained. The way that that protocol was explained, that's probably enough, is that one person, usually it's Bob and Alice, A and B, you would say one person puts energy into the system, and then the other person looks and they find a negative energy density, or they pull that energy out. Really what I'm saying is that they are explaining it the same way that I or we have been explaining teleportation of the airplane. Is that what they're saying is this plane's going like this, and then it's not there, and then it comes back over here. Like, I'm even more certain that that is actually teleportation we're seeing in the MH370 videos. Which, just to like put it back into context, guys, keep in mind, I've been saying that's teleportation in those videos since September of 2023. Since about a month after I saw the videos. Just based on intuition. Just based on looking at it, seems like teleportation. Energy's got to go somewhere. And it turns out that is actually really going to be teleportation. The movements around the orbs around the plane are the giveaway. There's no need for all that song and dance unless you're doing something to it that's not just wiping it out. Something more complicated. You almost could imagine it like they're twisting up the magnetic field lines or something like that. So more and more stuff's going to keep coming out. And I think the big kicker will be when people accept that actual quantum teleportation of information is absolutely possible. Right now, people are kind of in a denial point where they believe that quantum teleportation of information is not actually possible, even though quantum teleportation is possible. They think that like, oh, well, you can't send information, which is like the dumbest thing ever. Of course you can. Of course you can. And everybody explains it the same way. Morse code. If I can send an up or a down, I can send Morse code. I can send information. No question, no doubt. Then the only question is, can you scale it up to send information in the form of a person? And we already know you can because we've seen how it's done. Create a negative zone or create a 0 point, and that's the safe zone in between. That's how you do it. Okay, so now let's listen to it. So Joe Rogan spoke to Hal Puthoff, and the first 48 minutes were actually kind of interesting. Now, we're not going to watch all of this for several reasons. It's all way too long. But I do want to bring up a couple points on the remote viewing side that I thought were interesting. So I did listen to the whole thing, every word. And the remote viewing side of it, some aspects, one thing that was interesting is that Puthoff theorized, he gave a couple theories. And one idea was that we evolved away from our ESP powers. That we maybe had ESP powers, but as we became more industrialized, we no longer needed the ESP powers, therefore they became irrelevant and we lost the ability to do it. And that could explain why some people have more of a predisposition towards it than others. Another interesting thing was that Puthoff said that he found out they were just normal people that were doing the remote viewing. That when they tested them, they put them through all the medical tests after. They didn't seem like they weren't special in any way. So that's where he believed it must be a technique that people were tapping into. Although some people could be more predisposed towards it versus the others. And then the method of the remote viewing I thought was interesting as well, is that it wasn't a matter of trying to imagine something and visualize it. I did not expect that. It was not a matter of visualizing it. It was a matter of thinking about a visceral reaction, which is, how does it make you feel when you think about a place? And then turning those feelings into objects. And sometimes those feelings can be colors, emotions, things like that. And I just thought, what? Didn't really make a lot of sense to me. But if that's the methodology, okay, whatever. I just like learning about what's the real methodology and not what, you know, we've been told to think. 1 second. Okay, Lulu. Sorry, I think Lulu's freaking out. Okay. So the other thing about the remote viewing, so then he talks about, like, how do you prove that you can actually remote view somebody, which are great questions. How do you prove that you can do it? And this is where I thought Puthoff's response was kind of weak, is that if you could remote view it, then he said, oh, well, there were all these one-off times where he talks about, well, okay, we had this one instance where we needed something remote viewed and this guy perfectly got it right. Oh, he perfectly got it right. Okay, well, that doesn't mean that they you know, just because you get it right one time, statistically speaking, miracles are going to happen, statistically speaking. That doesn't mean people have superpowers. So I would have preferred a more data-driven response that would have said, okay, we tested people on this objective response, like with flashcards, right? I hold the flashcard up, tell me what the card is. Can you get it right more than average? If you can, you have psychic powers. So that's where he says, okay, well, just because you say, oh, he imagined this thing, or he used the remote viewing and it was so close that it was indistinguishable, or you know, or something like that. It couldn't have been a coincidence. That's not a very compelling argument to me. To me personally, it's not a very compelling argument. So that was the remote viewing aspect of it. Now, this is what I'll say about the remote viewing. I'm actually not really on board with the remote viewing and the psychic power stuff. I'm not convinced at all. But I will say that I do think it's possible from a physics standpoint. Absolutely. The 0 point energy, there being this extra dimension that connects everything, opens the door up to psychic powers, and the idea that, especially the idea of like ESP, reading someone's thoughts, remote viewing, that type of stuff, becomes physically possible. I'm not saying that it's necessarily true, but possible in theory. And yeah, some people mentioning the telepathy tapes. I'll see people mentioning Russell Targ, SRI, etc. There's a rich history in it. It's not really my forte. I'm more of the hard science kind of approach guy. But I do find that stuff interesting, fun to read about. It's just hard. How do you prove that stuff, you know? And then if you do have the ability where, okay, I can just wah, 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 and then, you know, summon an orb or something like that, just do it on demand. If you really have that power. Actually, I think UFO Shane was the one that said this the best. Just call CNN up, have CNN come, summon the orb in front of CNN, and have them film it. What are we waiting for? The reason why that doesn't happen is because they're not 100% accurate. And it's not happening at the drop of a hat. They're like waiting out there for hours. And then they see something and go, oh, I summoned that. I summoned that. There it is. Took 3.5 hours, but there it showed up finally. Right? Let's just be honest. That's what's going on. I wish I was wrong, but that's what it is. Okay. Then he jumps into the UFO stuff. Now, the first one, actually, I think I have a better clip of his UFO thing. In fact, I'm just going to summarize it because it's kind of long, but we've talked about it before. So one of the first things I noticed from this interview when Hal Puthoff started talking about the UFO stuff was that he was basically just reading, he was rehearsing pre-scripted stories that he's already told before. So if you guys have not listened to Hal Puthoff talk, unfortunately, or fortunately or unfortunately, I've heard everything Hal Puthoff has said that's on the internet. And so if there's a story that he's already told, I've already heard it. So when Hal Puthoff started talking about, under George Bush, I was asked to come to Washington, and we were told that we have aliens and we have, flying saucers, and we have to decide if we're going to disclose it or not. Once I heard that, I went, oh, I've already heard this story. And you guys have heard the story as well. I've posted the clip on Twitter. So he had told that story. And long story short, they do all the pros and cons of what would happen if we got like the disclosure of 0 point energy, free energy. And they decide that it's going to be too disruptive. It's going to basically end the world. Like everything we care about, love about is going to be changed and not necessarily wiped out, but changed significantly. And so they all basically decide we don't get disclosure. So before I lose my shit, because I'm probably going to lose my shit at the end of this, I need to calm myself down. Because the idea of some old white dudes just randomly deciding, and their skin color doesn't actually matter, but you get it. Some old white dudes just randomly deciding whether or not we're fucking worthy of free energy, of 0 point energy. Chat, there's very few things in this world that piss me off more than that. Very few things. Only other things that piss me off that much are when science gets hidden from the public and when planes get teleported out of the sky in covert operations. Anyway, we're going to save that part for the end about the whole, there's an end part of this interview. How Puthoff talks about like the Schumer amendment, and just spoiler alert, we are 1,000% against any and all UFO amendments that have anything to do with amnesty or whatever, like avoiding responsibility. I see any of that shit, I'm coming so hard at the people promoting it, the lawmakers that are writing it, everyone involved. I'm going to be on the side of the gatekeepers because I'm not letting them get away with getting off of responsibility for this. If Lockheed Martin has UFO flying saucers and they've been reverse engineering them, they're going to get sued into oblivion. That's how it's going to go down. And the reason why it's going to go down that way is because they didn't come out and admit what they did to MH370. They had their chances to admit the truth, that they've got their warp drive technology. If they had done that, I would have said, okay, you know what? You admitted it. You admitted that you had warp drive and free energy technology. We're going to give you a pass. But instead you thought, nope, no one will ever catch on to us. We're too smart. No one will ever, the peasants are too stupid to ever think that we could have this advanced technology. And now, no amnesty. No amnesty. Okay. Oh, chat, you almost got me. You almost got me on a rant, chat. Okay, what was the next thing he got into? Oh, the other thing that was interesting. So there was a lot of good insights in this. People may wonder, Ashton, why did you not freak out? Well, he did talk about 0 point energy in this interview at some point, and there were good insights in this interview. It was clearly prearranged between Joe Rogan and Hal Puthoff that certain topics would not be discussed. I just can't imagine a world where Joe Rogan doesn't ask about fusion. Joe Rogan asked him nothing about fusion, nothing about 0 point energy. It just, there's no way that was organic. But Hal Puthoff does say that as he basically implies that as he got older, he decided that we should disclose this. Now, the reason why this is significant is going to be more apparent later on. I have a feeling that Hal Puthoff has had a change of heart over the last 20, 30 years. That when he was younger, everybody like hiding it or whatever was considered cool. They were hiding it because they're so awesome. They have this cool ass technology and they're preventing the Russians and the Chinese from having it. But as they got older, they started to realize they hid it too well. They hid the technology too well. They compartmentalized it too well, much better than the Manhattan Project. And they realized nobody was going to figure out about it. Like, not anytime soon. They probably expected that like academia was going to figure it out and that the public would figure it out. And they started realizing the public's not figuring it out. The public is not figuring out the technology at all. And in fact, I think what they figured out was that they're the ones feeding the public the technology. The very engineers like Hal Puthoff, like Ken Shoulders, like Tom Bearden, they were the ones working the technology that then they would go privatize the declassified versions of the technology. And then that's how it gets out to the public. And that they realized that's what was going on. And they decided, holy shit, the world is never going to get disclosure, like ever. Their children are not going to get disclosure. Their grandchildren are not going to get disclosure. And they started looking at the long-term implications of what their actions were. And they realized they messed up. And now, do you know what Hal Puthoff is doing now, guys? I don't think a lot of people know this. Hal Puthoff is mentoring people. This was mentioned by Red Panda. Some people are now talking about it more openly. Do you know who the mentor is for Lou Elizondo, David Grush, all these UFO, all the woke disclosure people? It's Hal Puthoff. He's the one teaching them the physics. And he's not just mentoring him. Dan Winter said he's mentoring Dave Rossi, which, let's just say, doesn't surprise me at all. Dave Rossi's a good friend of mine. Doesn't surprise me. Dave Rossi's probably super smart because Hal Puthoff's been mentoring him. I think Hal Puthoff's trying to pass the baton down to the next generation of people. And I think he's had a change of heart from his days of hiding and being the Godfather now to where he's more open-minded to some of the stuff coming out, but he still respects national security the same way Lou Elizondo and the rest of them do. Interesting. And I don't know if I think I've told you guys this before, but it's a kind of a crazy story that I only found out about Hal Puthoff. I mean, I knew Hal Puthoff's name, but I did not know how significant he was in all this. And I found out about him because I was reading Sal Pais's papers and his patents. And one of the references was a Hal Puthoff paper. I remember it vividly. It was gravity as a 0-point fluctuation force. And I read that Hal Puthoff paper and I went, holy shit. I didn't really understand all the math, but I understood the concept. It was that Hal Puthoff was saying, I've unified Einstein's general relativity with electric charge. And that the answer is gravity. 0-point energy creates gravity. And I went, holy shit. And do you know what happened? Like about a week later, after I started freaking out on live streams talking about it, I got passed a paper by Hal Puthoff indirectly. At least that's how the story goes, how I was told. And the paper was Hal's other paper, The Ground State of the Hydrogen Atom. Now, you guys probably remember this, some of you, the old hats in the Four Orbs crew, but the ones that don't, basically, Hal Puthoff basically sent me through an intermediary his Ground State of a Hydrogen paper. And you say, okay, why does this matter? It means a couple things. It means Hal Puthoff was either directly or indirectly watching my content when I was uncovering that 0-point energy was the thing. And it shows that he wanted to help me understand it. Because what I learned from the Ground State of the Hydrogen Atom paper and what he learned in 1987, Hal Puthoff did when he wrote that paper, that was his first paper on 0-point energy. He realized there's an interaction between this 0-point energy and all the atoms we see around us all the time. He realized there's an exchange of energy happening. And that revelation is massive. What Hal Puthoff is saying in that first paper is that space is not empty and that there's an exchange of energy happening. If there's an exchange of energy, we can tap into that. Negative energy, free energy, all of it. That's why it was his first paper. Matt sends the cookie. Delicious cookie. Do you know who sent the anonymous letter? Great question. No. The letter to Ashton Forbes, which is on my YouTube channel, I added some graphics to it and the part with 60 minutes in there just so people aren't confused. I wasn't trying to deceive people. I was actually just trying to make it more clear. I have no idea who sent the letter to Ashton Forbes to me. I believe that's a real letter. There's no way that I think a hoaxer could have known some of the details in there, specifically about the low energy phase transition, the monopole, or the simple structure of the plasma orbs. I actually talked about this with Randall Carlson. So when that stream goes live, check it out. The very first thing I bring up with Randall Carlson is the letter to Ashton Forbes. And no, I didn't write it to myself. I can see why people would think that, because it's just insane that that's real. But I think that the letter is real. I just don't think that all the details are necessarily accurate. Like, they teleported the plane, but how does that guy know the exact time they received the plane? Is that true? I don't know. Hard to say. How would that guy know if all the people are dead or not? He probably doesn't know directly, or he or she. So that's the answer to letter to Ashton Forbes. Woke Society's gifted can. Thank you very much, Woke Societies. I appreciate you. And then Chaotic Good. Thank you, Chaotic Good. Thanks for being here. We didn't evolve away from our ESP abilities. Most people still have the ability with practice. We've piled on so many superficial distractions that depletes our bandwidth. That's basically what Hal Puthoff was saying as well, actually. So thank you for that donation. That's pretty much how Puthoff's saying, is that we've just kind of evolved away from it in a way we just don't use it anymore. And that was actually an interesting thought. Like, maybe we just don't use it, and that's the reason why we can't. We've kind of forgotten how to use our ESP. Could be. Okay. And the only reason why I was telling those stories is I forget that sometimes I've only told these stories like once or twice ever. And I forget that some people just, like, a lot of people don't watch all the live streams. So people probably miss some of these. And some of them are pretty compelling stories, even though there's no way to verify it. Like, I can't verify who sent the letter to Ashton Forbes, but as time goes on, the letter gained more credibility because no one came out and said, ha, 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 I made this up. And as we uncovered the physics, it turned out the physics that was being explained in the video to us was accurate. So, yeah, I think it's probably legit. And my guess would be probably not U.S. intelligence, probably Chinese intelligence, because China wants to fuck over America, so they would want to help me. So I could see Chinese intelligence sending that and playing it off like it came from Diego Garcia whistleblower, and that they're just like, they have hidden information. Like, imagine a scenario where China knows information about what we did to the plane, and they add it into that letter, but they don't know exactly what happened to the defectors or whatever, or the people, right? Those people are just gone. So I could imagine it being something like that, where it's like partially true, but also partially not true, partially speculation. Anyway, letter to Ashton Forbes, craziest shit ever. Check it out if you guys haven't on my YouTube page. Okay, let's get into this. The next part. Oh, okay. So one more part about Hal Puthoff, and then we're going to get to some of his clips in this, is that he gives us a timeline as well of his work efforts. He says that he only got involved with UFOs with Robert Bigelow. And Hal Puthoff told us that he only got it told about the aliens and the crash retrievals with that George Bush thing. When that George Bush thing came up where he did the numbers, he claims that was the first time he was made aware of it. So Hal Puthoff was actually working in black projects unrelated to UFO phenomenon in like the 90s. So this is the big rub, guys. And this is the part that Joe Rogan missed. What was Hal Puthoff doing in the 80s and the 90s? After the remote viewing, there's 20 years where Hal Puthoff is basically working on 0-point energy, inertia, gravity modification. He's part of the breakthrough physics propulsion, what do they call it? Study by NASA in the 90s. Hal Puthoff, no question, along with Eric Davis, these guys were working on black projects related to advanced propulsion and energy research and plasma. And we know that because Hal Puthoff worked with Ken Shoulders on condensed charge research in the late 80s and early 90s. So this guy has been directly connected to over unity, free energy, fusion, plasma, gravity, warp drives, and wormholes. Now, what did he say here at 58 minutes? He goes, The crazy part is, like, I don't even need to play the actual interview because I know everything Puthoff said so well. I can actually just explain it probably better than he can in these clips. But in this clip right here I'm about to play, he explains the DIRDs. the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents. And this is another story where we've heard him talk about the DIRDs. In fact, he's basically reading off a script right here when he's talking about the Defense Intelligence Reference Documents. But here we go.
And since I'd been involved with Bigelow, he asked me to be part of the program. So that's when I got, you might say, officially involved in really digging into the issue.
And what was your perspective at that point? So you had this thing during the George Bush administration, and what was your perspective after that conversation? Did you think maybe they do have something, the crashed Roswell site, maybe something else? Did you know more from talking to other people? Had you heard whispers? Like, what did you know?
You know, just I want to point out, this is why I love Joe Rogan. Like, even though Joe, you know, canceled on me, a lot of people say you should be spiteful about that or what have you. Not at all. I love Joe Rogan because he asks smart questions. So he's asking Hal Puthoff here, what did you think about the alien phenomenon before you got pulled in by Bigelow on it to research it? Great question, because it gives us insight into, like, if he knew we had advanced technology, he's probably going to be very open-minded to the idea that aliens exist. In fact, he probably speculated that the technology did not have a human source. If you're working on teleportation technology at Lockheed Martin, you're probably like, is this coming from humans? This come from some crash retrievals, right?
What I knew was not much. I mean, I heard whispers, but I didn't get, really involved in thinking about it. I mean, a good physicist realizes this is tinfoil hat conspiracy stuff,
But you had already had experience with remote viewing, seemingly
so I'm
being
already,
nonsense as well.
That's a weird dodge, bro. You know why that's such a weird dodge? If Joe Rogan asked me that question, that's not how I respond. I say, before this, I thought aliens were 100% real. I thought for sure we have the bodies. Now I'm not sure anymore. In fact, I tell people all the time, I'm less and less sure the more I research it. Here's a guy that he was in black projects. He definitely people would have been having water cooler talks about the aliens. And, hey, did we work on this technology? Is it alien technology, right? And he's going, I don't really know. I don't really know what it is. And that's tinfoil hat stuff. I'm a physicist. I don't really deal in that. Like, bro, what do you mean? You were the guy that was doing remote viewing. You are the tinfoil hat guy. You're the guy that they discredit because at SRI, all you did was remote viewing and psychic power stuff. Now you're going to try to play I'm a physicist, I don't speculate about aliens? Bro, get out of here. This is where, like, I'm starting to see how Hal Puthoff and Eric Davis lie. They don't lie overtly. They just lie by omission. And they use these pre-canned statements that you can really see through pretty easily once you get used to it.
Got that problem.
Right.
So, but when they came up with the idea, we should do another deeper dive into this. And by that time I was, as a physicist, through the years, I was a Star Trek fan and, Star Trek fan and all that kind of stuff. And as a physicist, I would hear about these UFO sightings and so on. So I always wondered about, how can this, could somebody really have any kind of propulsion that would look like that? And so anyway, so when this program got set up, it turned out my particular assignment was, okay, let's look at all the physics and engineering that might be behind this stuff. And by the way, we will arrange for you to get access to some materials. Okay, fine. So that was my tasking. And so I said, okay. So I can't get into a lot of detail, but I did do a lot of back and forth with some aerospace.
So he's talking kind of slow and it's annoying me. So I'm going to say he tried to get material from the companies and they didn't give him anything. They wouldn't give him anything. And they end up getting something from Roswell, supposedly. And that's that famous piece that everybody sees. It's got like 18 layers or whatever in it. But I believe that Hal Puthoff was picked randomly out of a hat because Oh, he's the guy that does weird shit. No. Hell no. Hal Puthoff is mentoring David Grush and Lou Elizondo and Dave Rossi and who knows how many other people out there. He's like weirdly, secretly maybe helping me too. And by the way, the MH370 videos definitely are going to vindicate him. So what is going on with this guy? And and the other thing about it is that he went from the NASA breakthrough physics propulsion laboratory or whatever they called it to now helping Robert Bigelow understand the UFO phenomenon. Robert Bigelow's not picking him because he's a random guy that does psychic power stuff. He's picking him because he's a world-class physicist that does black projects and helped NASA figure out warp drives. Like, that's the reason. So I feel like he's really downplaying his skills. The other thing I want to say that I'm proud of is that we are pulling these people into the limelight. Hal Puthoff has been pulled into the limelight from relative obscurity. Same with Eric W. Davis. Eric W. Davis, Anna Polina Luna. Wait till you look at this video we're going to watch in a few minutes. The way she's looking at him, chat, find you a woman that looks at you the same way Anna Polina looks at Eric W. Davis about warp drives. I mean, wow. Sapiosexual for sure, chat.
Space executives about getting.
Let's skip to the dirds here. It should be happening in a second.
If there's nothing to negotiate about, you'd say, Hal, we don't have materials. You wouldn't say you don't have enough clearance for us to even discuss.
We would have gone to subject matter experts all around the world. We'd give them some materials. We'd say, you know, this came from a Russian, have immediate access to this. But just to give you an idea, some of the papers that we got by going out to these people, I mean, and you'll see how serious we were. Aneutronic fusion propulsion, superconductors and gravity research, positron aerospace propulsion.
Bro, look at Hal Puthoff. My man is so old school. He's literally got a piece of paper printed out with the names. That's his slideshow. He printed out, I can tell this man printed out his full slideshow. He's so boom. That's such a boomer thing to do. He printed out the slideshow. Look, I'm gonna max screen size it so you guys can see. He printed out his slideshow. I can tell he's looking at the picture that has all the dirds on it. Bro, it's called the internet. Just have him pull up the internet. I love you, Hal, but oh my God.
Propulsion, warp drive, dark energy, extra dimensions, advanced nuclear propulsion.
Jamie's got it up here.
Yeah. So this is just the first few of 38 papers that I arranged for leaders.
I mean, chat. I'm just going to read these. Aneutronic fusion propulsion. Aneutronic fusion propulsion, by the way, is cold fusion. They just keep coming up with new names for it because they don't like to say cold fusion because it's got a bad stigma. Aneutronic fusion, the very first one on the list is cold fusion propulsion. IEC fusion as a compact energy source, the one on the top right. IEC fusion as a compact energy source. That is actually literally using ball lightning to produce cold fusion to produce infinite energy. Right there. The one on the top right is fucking cold fusion reactor. This is why you're just looking at this, you're like, what in the hell? Quantum vacuum energy extraction. Space-time metric engineering is his paper. Space-time metric engineering is his scientific paper. There's the traversable wormholes. There's the warp drive one. Advanced nuclear propulsion, advanced aerospace. Like, these papers are probably the most important papers ever. Just imagine what Hal Puthoff had to go through. So Hal Puthoff was a spook. He was with the DIA and the CIA. And then he got a contract from the DIA to get all those papers written. Some by him, some by Eric Davis, most by other people, other Black Project engineers. And they were on a classified server that nobody outside the classified server had access to. And they were the most popular papers out there, so popular that people demanded they not be removed from the classified server. Only later to be released through Freedom of Information Act request in around 2017, 2018. About 8 years after they were published. People need to wake the hell up to those scientific papers.
to come up with.
So this is based on projections from where technology currently sits to, if you extrapolate, where it's going to be in 2050, based on what they're working on.
Right. So
Space-time, metric engineering, traversable wormholes, stargates.
So you see, we
Look at which one Joe Rogan's going to. Joe Rogan's like, okay, traversable wormholes. That guy Ashton Forbes and everybody. There's like 1,000 comments in the video for this interview that say, "Talk to Ashton Forbes." Traversable wormholes, guys. One thing I want to say is that I'm so glad this interview already happened, and the reason why I'm glad this interview happened is that when I talk to Joe Rogan, now I don't need to say all this shit again. I don't need to talk about the DIRDs. I don't need to explain that to him. I don't have to explain to him that they decided not to give us disclosure. All this stuff has already been said. I also don't need to explain Sakharov and all that as well, because Puthoff explains that to him as well. So when I talk to Joe Rogan, I can say, hey, remember when Puthoff was telling you that Sakharov figured this out and that Ruda and Haish figured out gravity and inertia? Remember when you were talking to Puthoff and he said, hey, here's all these DIRDs for 2050, the year 2050, these scientific papers. They got published a little too soon. I can just reference it. It'll make it a lot easier. And for people wondering, I'm speaking metaphorically. I don't know if I'm going to speak to Joe Rogan or ever will speak to Joe Rogan. I'm just saying that it's going to happen eventually because the videos are never going away. We teleported an airplane, and eventually everyone's going to come to terms with that, including Joe Rogan. And I presumably, when he comes to terms with that, he'll want to talk to me about it. So that's all I'm saying. Okay, let's keep going. We got a lot to do, and I'm being lazy.
We weren't kidding around.
Well, when you started getting the warp drive, dark energy, extra dimensions, brain machine interfaces. Now, did you ask any of these? So presumably, this is just me from a civilian's perspective. Presumably, you have some sort of crash thing. You have to bring in people who make spaceships. You have to bring in people who make military jets, advanced propulsion systems.
Exactly.
Those are the people that would be
and
able
to. And the people we had working on those papers were people from those communities.
How did they? This is the conundrum that if they did disclose, and the companies that weren't given access to these materials did fall apart, and then the companies that got access to these materials advanced and had spectacular businesses. How did they decide who? Just assuming you would have something. How would you decide? Was it based on relationships, like knowing that someone could keep a secret, like because you're dealing with outside the government now? Presumably, if you have a defense contractor, that's an independent company,
right?
Not necessarily, question. Even though they work hand in glove with the government.
So that's a good question by Joe, right? He's saying, how does this work? If you gave somebody a 1-up, said, here's a flying saucer for you, and now the competitors went bankrupt already, how's that going to play out? You know, they can't even sue you. You already made everybody else go bankrupt. The situation from a legal perspective is going to be unprecedented.
They're not necessarily a part of the government.
So in fact, if you put your thinking cap on, you would say, okay, this would be the way if you want to keep it.
Okay, by the way, pay attention now, guys. There's like 900 people watching. Pay attention to what he's about to say right here. This was the first Yahtzee moment I had. My skin started to crawl when I listened to this right here. Listen to what he's going to say. He's going to explain to you right now exactly how they have infiltrated these defense contractors, how they control and how they make sure that the technology flows from the aliens or wherever we're getting it, the military, to the defense contractors, and why they'll never disclose it because they've embedded themselves together where they can no longer be untangled. The defense contractors and the military and the intelligence community that has access to this technology. Listen carefully.
Out of the public,
because you don't have to disclose it.
Yeah, you don't have to give it to a contractor. Say,
right.
Okay, this is your stuff, and from now on, you own it.
But how do you control that, though? You'd have to have government agents embedded deeply in that, which I assume they do anyway. But you'd have to have intelligence agents I hope they do, deeply embedded in these defense contractors, where they would make sure that they maintain some sort of intense level of secrecy.
That's exactly right. And when you think about, okay, these days, well, suppose we have some kind of disclosure. What are these companies going to do? They've been hiding things, or various parts of the government have been hiding things.
Misappropriating funds, lying to Congress.
Lying to Congress. So you can see why it's such a big problem at this point.
Well, that was that disclosure documentary that I saw you in as well that appeared at South by Southwest, which was excellent. What is it
Right.
called?
It's called The Age of Disclosure.
That was me. I was going, no. We're not promoting that, chat. What was that movie? I don't know. Forget about it. Forget about that. We're not promoting any random woke disclosure movies. But, wow, they do control the companies. Chat, who's on the board of directors of Lockheed Martin? Who are the board of directors of Lockheed Martin? Oh, it's a shit ton of generals and military people. Wow. When I looked at Inmarsat, the satellite company that said that the Malaysian Airlines flew into the South Indian Ocean based on these satellite pings that only they have, there's a bunch of admirals and generals in the board of directors. How do they control the companies? They literally control them. They ensure that military people in the know that are aware of the special access programs are the ones that get appointed to the positions of the board of directors in those companies. And what does that create? That creates a situation where those people have a vested interest, an incentive to cover up the information because now they're liable. So imagine, let's just say, I'm going to choose a name at random. Let's say your name is General Joseph F. Dunford. Just as a random name to throw out there. Let's say that you were told to start Space Force under Trump and that maybe you're not aware that we can teleport airplanes, specifically MH370. And maybe you get promoted to be in the highest rank military position in the entire United States under Obama right after that happens. After you build the Space Force for us under Trump, because remember your name is General Joseph F. Dunford, then you go ahead and you retire. As the highest ranking military member, you say, I'm done. Where do you go? Where do you go, chat? What do you do after you're the highest ranking military member, may or may not know about teleportation technology, set up Space Force? There's only one place to go. You go to Disneyland. Just kidding. No, you go to Lockheed Martin Board of Directors. You become Board of Directors at Lockheed Martin. That's what happens. You go to the defense contractors because you got to make sure that they never talk. Nobody ever says that we got super advanced technology. Nobody ever blows the whistle on the fact that we use it in covert operations. Yada, yada, yada. There you go. Okay. Let's forward. Let's go up a little bit more on this. Let's say, this is a pretty interesting one. So here was a fun thing that he mentions. Hal has some actually pretty good insights in here. He says he was part of OSAP or ATIP or whatever acronym they're giving it, where they were studying these UFOs. And Hal says that the reason why it stopped was because the money dried up. Why did the money dry up? The money dried up because they were so classified in what they were doing that it looked like it was overlapped with generic stuff. Like they would just call what they were doing in some of these programs things that were really generic, and then people would audit it and they would go, well, this is the same as this. We don't need this. And they would just cut the funding. So there's this ironic, hilarious line where you need to explain why this thing that you're studying is so significant, but you also want to keep it secret so that people don't know what you're doing. So he tells a pretty funny story about a situation like that that happened, and that's how they actually lost their funding, because they actually couldn't tell the truth about how significant the thing was that they were researching. And then after that, I'll let him talk here.
This really for this? Well, no, then you'd be revealing what this was really for. So anyway, that's sort of ended that way. But anyway, so based on that, we then, as a group, went to, turns out, the Department of Homeland Security to set up a whole new program. And it was going to be a special access program. It was under a name, which can now be revealed because AARO, the Advanced Aerospace, Advanced Anomalies Aerospace Resolution Office, has revealed it. It was called Kona Blue. And we built up a stack of documents that would go to the ceiling here about what needed to be done, what we were going to do, how it should be done, who should be involved.
So at this point, you're convinced that this is a real phenomenon.
Wait. What? Hal Puthoff was involved in Kona Blue? Chat, we might have to revive the Kona Blue document after tonight. I only mentioned the Kona Blue thing one time. It was right before I spoke to Ian Carroll about a year ago. This document came out, and the document was talking about teleportation, mind powers, all kind of extracting energy from the vacuum, all the stuff we've been talking about. And it was called Kona Blue. And the story that came along with it was that it was some kind of splinter or spinoff from the OSAP ATIP UFO thing. So Hal was connected to that too, which of course he was. Of course he was. So guys, anyone that wants to say like, hey, what if this is all a psyop and Hal Puthoff is just trying to throw fake science out there? You can't continually get funding for stuff like this after you lost funding here and re-get it over here, unless there's something actually there. There's something clearly there. But more than that, there's a reason why Hal Puthoff's constantly being tied to all of these things related to extracting quantum energy, warp drives, wormholes, black projects. The picture is pretty clear, man. He's helped build this stuff for them. He's helped build the stuff for Lockheed Martin. The defense contractors are way more advanced than anybody else. Like, way more. Okay. He talks about his ultra-terrestrial hypothesis, which I think is kind of interesting. Out of all his papers to mention, the ultra-terrestrial hypothesis one would not have been one I would have expected, but he does kind of explain that there's a lot of different theories for what the alien answer could be.
Exactly what we're talking about today. So as far as
this is right,
where they come from or what they're doing here, I myself have written a paper called Ultra-Terrestrials, where I try to cover the gamut. And I cover everything. Yeah, they could be spacecraft from some other galaxy whipping through here. Or maybe there's some Atlanteans left over from eons ago, and they're just kind of hiding out in the seabed or on some mountain.
Bro, people are making fun of the Atlanteans, and I'm just saying, stock on Atlanteans being the answer for aliens is rising rapidly. Now, that's how Puthoff's saying it, and Jason Giorgiani was saying it. I think Cliff High, maybe some other people are also talking about Atlanteans. And actually, that's also what Randall Carlson, spoiler alert, Randall Carlson's theory is that it might be some kind of Atlantean situation, that what have you as well. So, man, a lot of people are on this Atlantean thing, and I kind of like it. It's like kind of like the Wakanda theory, like that, you know, maybe they're hiding at the bottom of the ocean because they've got bubble cities or something down there.
On range someplace. Or maybe some ET group showed up here 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 years ago, and they're hiding out with some bases locally and so on. And of course, we have a fellow by the name of a professor by the name of Masters who thinks that, well, maybe it's time travelers from the future coming back. And then there's the whole idea, since physicists like to talk about additional.
Got to be honest, time travelers from the future doesn't make any sense to me. Just doesn't work. I want it to work. I understand time travel is real, but it doesn't work the way people are thinking that it works. And like, maybe we can send information to the past, but if we could send information to the past, then you immediately get to a point where we should be receiving information from the future all the time, because there's so much future in front of us. We should be getting messages all the time. So we should be able to, in theory, like, predict everything that's going to happen. And that singularity should have hit a while back. So I don't think it's going to be people from the future, but whatever. Who cares? I don't care what the answer is.
Dimensions, you know, maybe they come from another. So anyway, then in my ultra-terrestrials paper, I list everyone I can think of and say, you know, we should be exploring all of these. So at this point, I would say, we know it's NHI, non-human intelligence, but it's not clear what the source is. Maybe at a higher level of classification than I had access to, and maybe it's known, but right now I'd say we don't.
Do you have a suspicion?
I guess my suspicion that
That was a straight up gravity class pause right there. Do you have a suspicion? Why the long pause? What are you waiting? What are you waiting like to say right there? Like, you should be the number one guy that suspects what's going on with the UFO thing. And when you get asked, like, it sounds like you're thinking about to make up an excuse. That was like a 5-second pause. What was that?
it's likely non-human intelligence from some other galaxy or far out in our own galaxy that have come here but some time back, and that there are stations here. You know, I mean, one of our remote viewers that was
Okay, you lost me there. You had me until you said remote viewers. If Hal Puthoff says that it's probably people from another galaxy or far away that came here a long time ago, that's probably what it is. If that's what Hal Puthoff thinks it is, that's probably what it is. And the huge thing about what he just said right there is that he's implying faster than light travel is possible. For Hal Puthoff, who just earlier in this said that he's a physicist and a science guy, for him to say he thinks it's coming from another galaxy or somewhere else in our galaxy, that requires faster than light travel. There's no way you're getting here from another galaxy without faster than light travel. So that's a pretty huge thing to say. I think that went right over Joe Rogan's head, because people that don't think that faster than light travel is possible, if you ask them what they think the answer to the aliens is, they're going to say something like ancient history as the answer. Or they're going to say, you know, robotic probes or visiting von Neumann probes. And if you guys don't believe me, go back and listen to the conversations that I have and interviews that I do. This is why I asked the question. I want to understand where people's mindsets are in terms of are they limited by the speed of light or not? It makes a huge difference in terms of what other civilizations are possible. Okay, a few more. He gets asked why they crash, and he doesn't say. Weirdly, he avoids the real answer, which I thought was odd. I don't think he says it. We're not going to listen to it, but the answer to why UFOs are crashing is that they're not invincible, and we can hit them with the same propulsion mechanism, which is just scalar waves, and we can knock them off balance, basically. That's why they're going to crash. They're not invincible. In fact, using gravity as a propulsion method is kind of fragile, actually. It's not some invincibility, although you can use it to shield yourself from kinetic weapons like a force field. But I guess the point being that any technology has a weakness. So why do UFOs crash? Because once you find their weakness, you can make them crash. Now, what Hal Puthoff says instead, though, is that, well, maybe they just left them here. Maybe we dug them up. And actually, I think that's probably what happened. I think it's less likely that we found something during Roswell, although that's possible, certainly possible, the crash happened. I think it's more likely we found these things like because we dug it up in an ancient site or something like that. And we found it buried underground. And it turns out it's like 100,000 years old, but it's also hyper advanced at the same time. That's what I think happened. Because if a scenario like that occurs, you immediately understand what's going on. You don't need to do a bunch of studies to figure it out. If you dig underground in something that must be really, really old, and you find a flying fucking saucer, you immediately know, oh, okay, there's super advanced technology, and we are not the first people in this universe, not even the first people on this planet. And I think that's basically what occurred, is that they knew, and this is why they're not like begging the public to help them understand the phenomenon, because they know right away, like, oh shit, there's really much more advanced technology than our caveman rockets that we use. And they've been trying to figure out for the last 80 or 100 years, how do we catch up to this level of just extremely hyper advanced technology, especially in a situation where we did not even have the tools, the equipment required to build it. We couldn't even begin to build it. Now, of course, we can. Now, of course, we've gotten to the point where we're secretly very advanced. And then there's also the theory that Hal Puthoff leans into, which I think so as well, is that what if the aliens seeded us? What if they put us here or hybridized creatures that were here or hybridized with creatures that were here? Any number of scenarios. Or what if we are aliens that crashed here and we just decided to get rid of our technology? This is actually something I asked Randall Carlson. What if we just decided to throw our technology into the sun and we're like, you know what? We're going to start over on this planet. Maybe. So I do like, I mean, and the reason why I do like this interview with Hal Puthoff and Joe Rogan is that they're broaching on these things, and Hal Puthoff's saying the things that I would have probably said as well. I think I agree with everything Hal Puthoff's saying so far. Now, do I care where the aliens come from? No, not at all. I don't care if they're from another dimension or from underwater or like Biju or whatever. Thank you, Matt, for the additional cookie. Delicious cookie. Okay. Okay, he's also asked about Bob Lazar. We're going to get to this other clip that I've got ready here in a second. So he gets asked about Bob Lazar, and he gets specifically asked about the gravity, element 115, and Bob Lazar's claim of this gravity propulsion thing. And guys, I broke the story, which nobody's really paid a lot of attention to. I don't blame you for not paying attention to it. I'm just a random guy, but I did break the story. Nobody else broke the story. Bob Lazar does not believe in 0-point energy. So the reason why Bob Lazar believes that we must have an element 115 is because Bob Lazar does not realize that we can extract energy from all around us. I don't blame Bob Lazar for this. It's not a slight on him. If you have a classical view of physics where you think that space is empty, then you must imagine there must be a magical fuel source for a UFO. The problem is, it doesn't matter what your magical fuel source is. The math and the physics doesn't work. There's no fuel source onboard fuel source that can work. Any onboard fuel source must be tapping into 0-point energy, even cold fusion. It's just a simple matter to energy equivalence principle. That's it. Okay, so then he talks about space-time metric engineering. He actually does get into it, but he never says the words 0-point energy, which I do think is kind of odd. So here we go. Let's just listen to a little Hal Puthoff do some science for us.
Of that element, they could have a long lifetime. Who knows?
There he is.
So it's just hard to evaluate. So it sits in my gray box, as I say. But his description of the anti-gravity effects and so on, that's an area that is well described as what you might expect.
Okay, so chat, do you know what Hal Puthoff needs? He needs an anger translator. Hal Puthoff does not have the ability, I think, to raise his voice. So you know what? I've nominated myself. Are there any objections? No objections are heard. Well, I guess it passes. Ashton Forbes is now officially Hal Puthoff's anger translator. Booyah. Okay, let me translate this for you. Basically, what Hal Puthoff is saying to Bob Lazar, he's going, Bob, you's a bitch, son. We don't need no element 115. That's some nonsense, bro. You got straight up psyoped by the CIA spooks when they made you think about that. But you know what? Don't feel too bad, Bob. Don't feel too bad. Turns out the space-time metric engineering that I figured out, I'm Hal Puthoff's anger translator. Turns out your UFO flying saucers, they can work like that. The stuff you saw, that is possible. So I'm not going to dunk on you, Bob. Instead, we're going to say that we had some mixed reactions to your claims. There you go.
It turns out in that series of 38 papers, one of my own papers that I provided was one called Space-Time Metric Engineering. And when the pilots came to me and said, drops down, takes off, right angle turn at Mach 10, this is way beyond the physics. And as I said earlier, I think it's not beyond our physics, beyond our engineering. But what I did on the physics level was all of our electronics that we have here, for example, this microphone, the recording that you're making, and so on, that's all based on electromagnetic kinds of technologies, all of which come out of Maxwell's equations. Maxwell's equations, Clerk Maxwell way back in the 1800s developed the equations for electromagnetism, and basically any kind of electromagnetic device, you name it, Wi-Fi, whatever, can be traced back to his equations. So what I said to myself was, okay, we have these apparent craft operating with this unbelievable kinds of activity. Is there any way to account for that in our physics? Well, it turns out. So what I did.
So Joe, let me just simplify this for you, Joe. Basically, I'm a fucking genius. I took Einstein's equations, I took electrical charge, and these CIA spooks said, hey, Hal, check out these flying saucers. How are they doing that? And I said, shit, dog, I got you. I'm just going to take a little bit of Einstein general relativity. I'm going to take a little bit of electrical charge. I'm going to take Maxwell's original equations and booyah, mix it all together. What do we got? We got the most delicious lasagna you've ever eaten in your entire life, and we're going to call it extended electrodynamics. Booyah, get the F out. Mic drop.
I took a sheet of paper, and the left-hand side of the paper, I wrote down.
Sorry, Hal, I already covered all this. We can go on to the next part. I already got you, bro. I already translated it for you. I read your mind. Already read it. Boom. There you go. Okay.
So he used Einstein's equations to say, okay, under what conditions could we do a warp drive? And he actually came up with solutions from out of the equations. Okay, what would it take to drive that? Oh, it would be hundreds of times more than the energy of the sun. I mean, just out of sight energy. So, until we have a new energy source, or until there's some backdoor that we haven't, zeroed in on, it's just really outside of our expertise to think of engineering.
There could be.
No. Fuck that, bro. You can tell the moment he gets so excited about explaining it all. And at the last second he goes, but yeah, no, it's outside of our engineering capabilities. So we gave up on it. It's fun to talk about, but we just don't really do it. And the follow-up here should be wait a minute. Aren't you a black project engineer that works on all these things? What do you mean you're not working on this? And clearly you've got to be working on these exact things that you're so excited about. But no, we can't make any of it work. None of it works, so don't worry about it. We need a new energy source. So how's it in the follow-up here? What energy source? What energy source is flying those UFOs?
Be conceivably some breakthrough and an understanding of this backdoor, whatever it could be, some new type of science, some new kind of understanding.
And one of the things that I've looked into myself as well, what about vacuum energy, so-called? As a quantum physicist, we all know that, you push a kid in the swing and it comes down and stops. But at the quantum level, you get something going. It doesn't stop. It always comes down to a certain level, and it's still there. So it turns out that what we call empty space is not really empty. It's full of quantum fluctuations. And in fact, one of the difficulties of modern physics theory is that when we go by using our standard quantum theory to calculate, well, what's the energy density, right here or way out in empty space? What's the energy density of those quantum fluctuations? It's 120 orders of magnitude greater than could possibly be according to all of our other theories. I mean, it would.
Wait, did something happen in the stream? What's going on? Why did something happen in the stream, huh? Let me just take a look. Hold on, guys. Stream unavailable. Stream suspended for policy violations. Stream suspended. Huh. Did I get copyright striked, chat? Wow. Let me post the link to the YouTube, to the Rumble. That's weird. I've watched Joe Rogan stuff before. I never got copyright strike before. Let me post a link. Share. Okay, guys, here's the Rumble link. That's weird. Do I get an alert or anything? Let's see what it said. Nothing. Do I get an email or anything? They just suspend my stream with no alert, huh? Wow. Sorry, guys. Hold on a second. We're going to keep going in just a minute. Yeah, the chat's still going somehow. Was it because I was swearing? I've sweared before. I've never gotten a violation before. I checked my YouTube. I didn't get anything. There's nothing. I don't know. Hold on. I got a copyright notice. Oh, no longer being streamed. Okay, it's gonna come back in a second. It was just a copyright strike. Okay, cool. Okay, we're gonna keep going, guys. Yeah, it was because I was streaming Joe Rogan stuff. No worries, guys. Okay. Next thing is I'm gonna probably have to just speak to it. So Sakharov, I think I have a clip I can play from his stuff on Sakharov. Damn.
Sakharov, a very famous Soviet physicist, said, you know, I don't think gravity is its own thing. I think really it's a manifestation of the underlying quantum fluctuations. And so I and some colleagues from Lockheed Martin and elsewhere kind of looked into that option. And, you know, if we're just sitting here talking and so on, you know, the universe is full of quantum fluctuations. Why don't I notice it? On the other hand, if you get into your fast-moving car and you suddenly take off, you're pressed back in your seat. Well, what is it that's pressing you back? I mean, it isn't the wind. You've got a windshield and a cover.
So right there, he had a really good example. So he says Sakharov in 1967 was the first person that speculated that gravity may come from the 0-point fluctuations all around us. That's what he says at first. And then he says Hal Puthoff, Alfonso Ruda, and Bernard Hayes. Bernard Hayes was Lockheed Martin Black Project engineer. They all realized and worked together, wrote several papers that say that 0-point fluctuations explain gravity, mass, and inertia. Gravity, mass, and inertia. And this is where they then took this idea to the next level in terms of being able to actually manipulate space-time directly.
Well, there's some modeling that says, well, maybe it's because if you try to accelerate through the vacuum fluctuations.
Oh, and then the example is great, which is that, okay, why do we have resistance to acceleration? And someone may say, well, the wind is providing wind shear. It's preventing you from accelerating. But you would say, well, I'm inside the car with the windshield. It's protecting the wind. So something else is pushing me backwards. What is it that's pushing me against the chair when I lift off? And the answer is, it's the 0-point energy field. The 0-point energy field that you're feeling all around you all the time, that's what's causing this resistance to acceleration. That's what's causing us to push backwards. God, I'm really getting cracked on this, huh? That's wild. Yeah, be careful, Jeremy, if you're in there. Just go over to Rumble if you guys are on the wrong thing. Hold on a second. So the analogy is pretty good from that perspective. Now, I'm not going to be able to finish the rest of that clip. So I'm probably, let's see. Damn. Let's switch over and go to the Davis interview, and then I'll go back to that afterwards. No, it's not an official strike. So let me go to where's the Davis interview? Okay. Yeah, I didn't even show that much. I definitely didn't break copyright strike stuff. I think what happens is the thing auto catches you if you don't speak over it.
Possibilities. And when I was used to thinking as a trained PhD physicist, I earned my doctorate in.
Okay, so if you're not sure who this is Eric W. Davis. Eric W. Davis is the right-hand man to Hal Puthoff. And Eric W. Davis is the man who is the world's leading expert at warp drives and wormholes. So while the Hal Puthoff interview went live, at the same time, Eric W. Davis is sitting on this panel next to Annapolena Luna, Congressman Burleson, and then Avi Loeb is somewhere here as well.
Physics at the University of Arizona in 1999. And so I worked on 3 space missions in graduate school. The IMS, which is the Infrared Astronomical Satellite program, and 2 Voyager missions to the island. So, as pertaining to the topic that Lou was, I'm not trying to avoid it. It is a sensitive subject. It's due to astronaut Ed Mitchell, Dr. Ed Mitchell, Cal to USN retired.
Hold on a sec, guys. Jesus, this is so annoying. Yeah, normally I have no problem showing this stuff. This is so annoying, man. Fuck. Let me put this back on. I think it's because it's a Joe Rogan interview. What I should do is just download this real quick. Hold on, let me do that. There it is. Okay, we're back. Yeah, it's like bugged out. It keeps coming back, and then my stream does, and then keeps crashing. Man, why are they doing this to me, man? So fucking. I think if I download the videos beforehand, it works better. Something about the way they check, the AI checks, like looks for if you're actually streaming. Okay, here we go. Let's try this out.
Astrophysicist.
Okay, so Eric W. Davis, he's expert, blah, blah, blah. Here we go.
And so this avoids all congressional oversight. It avoids the game of 8. And it's one of the most clever techniques used to hide it. And as far as I know, only 1 4-star general and 1 3-star admiral were able to locate these programs. And that's about as much as I can say. They located the programs and they uncovered them. One got a lot of resistance.
Okay, so Eric Davis mentions his Wilson Davis memo. Basically, some of these generals and admirals and what have you were able to dig in and try to find out where this stuff was being hidden, which compartmentalized programs were the ones that had it. But only certain ones at extremely high levels that were able to figure out kind of who potentially had this technology. And the way they hide it is exactly as I've been talking about, is that they will get contracts, and even the CIA and the intelligence communities, they will use shell corporations and pass the money through them so that it can never be reached back up to the CIA or, you know, whoever, whatever organization. So basically the money works exactly as they say in the movies. Shell companies, no way to track the money, use private companies as well that are shielded from FOIA requests. So Eric Davis basically says all of that stuff in there. Yeah, it seems like wow, it's crazy. My YouTube got screwed, guys. Sorry for the interruption. If it seems weird, it's because YouTube, what's happening is that every few seconds, the stream comes back and then it gets immediately struck again and disappears again. So people are extremely frustrated on the YouTube right now. I will send an official complaint to the YouTube people after this. Hopefully they will do something, because they absolutely messed up on this. I have fair use. There's nothing I'm doing wrong here. I only streamed a very small percentage of Joe Rogan's interview. I think total less than 10 minutes total. Especially when I'm looking at my thing here, we streamed almost none of it. Okay. I'm worried about even showing what I'm showing right now here. Let's see. Okay, let's go back to this. So what did I want to show on the Eric W. Davis thing? So he worked on special projects in the 90s and 2000s. And the reason why him working on these projects in the 80s and 90s and 2000s is because he also wrote his teleportation physics study and his ball lightning study in the early 2000s as well. So more and more, I'm leaning on Eric W. Davis as being the guy that helped build the orb technology, the teleportation technology. He's the one that most likely has the knowledge to pull it off at the time frame that we would need. And also, when you look at this, Eric Davis is sitting in the middle here. Just the imagery in question makes it seem like Eric Davis is a really important guy. Now, let's see what else Eric Davis has been saying here.
Often shipped around to the major office and programmatic organizations for presidential administration, and maybe every 5 to 10 years or so.
Where's the thing I want?
And so these things are very old.
Okay, actually, you know what? Hold on.
Can you please explain what makes exotic material that has been recovered from the U.S. government exotic? What makes it different from atomically and chemically?
It's actually a very simple answer. It's the way it's fabricated. It's the way it's fabricated. That's what makes it exotic. It's not a new element that's never been discovered and placed on the periodic table of elements. No.
So it's not a new element. That is what's happening. Is it's normal elements that have been manufactured in a way. That's what the thing that's advanced. So when I think about what is it that is making this material so advanced, it's how it's being put together at the atomic scale. They're making metamaterials. They're making metamaterials at the atomic scale. Metamaterials at the atomic scale will get the job done. And so if it's not a matter of, Jesus, man, sorry, hold on. It's not a matter of that there's some special material that only exists in some special universe or something like that. It's just a matter of their engineering capabilities being beyond what is publicly available. Okay, let's go back.
The materials are in the periodic tables. They're either radioactive isotopes that we already know of, or they're any of the other non-radioactive, non-actinide elements on the table. It's just the combination of the materials is unusual. It could be that you could say that that's exotic, but it's the composition. It's how you built the craft, the materials that form the craft, and everything inside the craft. It's quite exotic because one of the company's leadership was a young material scientist.
Okay, let's skip to the next part here. The part I want to say is he gets asked about the science. I think it's about right here. Let me see.
Pull some threads here. The what is your understanding of the physics or the likely propulsion technology? What is your assessment of what the capabilities are and how it's being achieved? And then also, what I want to ask about materials and energy as well.
We can only speculate. These things are so far in advance. We can only speculate. The best speculation I can come up with is General Tip. He does a great job predicting something like a warp bubble. UAP do exhibit the phenomenon of sublight or less than light speed warp bubbles. However, that becomes a challenge.
So right here, he's talking about warp bubbles to Congressman Burleson, which my impression of Congressman Burleson here is he has no idea what Eric Davis is talking about.
I'm talking about the lady that died in the ocean and climbed up out of the from under the ocean and up in the air. So warp.
So it's not warping space-time.
It's a warp in space-time. Yeah, that's described on Einstein's general theory of relativity.
Yeah.
And so the problem is
It doesn't, gravity warps space-time,
That's right.
right?
Yeah.
So then these objects.
So you're actually warping the space-time itself. And if you are back live right now, I just want you to know I have been saying what's wrong. It has nothing to do with me whatsoever. It's 100% YouTube's fault. Complain to YouTube. Do not report the stream. Just complain to YouTube. It's 100% their fault. Everything I'm sharing is under fair use. I've never been striked before like this before. I have the video sped up. I've only shared a very small portion of the interview. I've mostly been talking about what's been in the interview and not actually showing like any of it. So nothing I'm saying should be copyright striked or anything like that. I don't know why it is. And once again, I have no control over it. If you are on YouTube and you have issues, you have to go to Rumble. Simple as that. You have to go to Rumble. In fact, I'm probably just going to call it quits here tonight because I don't really want to deal with this. It's so frustrating watching people in the YouTube comments every 5 seconds talking about how it keeps going down. So I'm probably just going to call it quits here, I think, actually, after this. So I think we'll just finish it with the last clip of Eric W. Davis. And then I think I'm going to stop the stream for tonight because obviously we're having some problems. And Rumble is now down as well, people are saying. Okay. Yes. 1 sec. Blame YouTube. Okay, there you go. I'm not even doing anything wrong. I've literally just been sitting here talking to you guys, and YouTube keeps going down. Okay. So the last thing is, here's the Eric Davis clip. So basically, Eric Davis is explaining the science, and then this happens.
Space-time. Yeah. That's described on Einstein's general theory of relativity.
Yeah.
And so the problem is
It doesn't, gravity warps space-time.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
So then these objects are changing space-time around them.
Wait,
Yeah,
what's going on?
they have a thin shell of energy, and the type of energy would have to be negative energy density, and it would be consistent with the type of energy density that you can create in quantum vacuum. And examples of that are the Casimir cavity that has a little vacuum region that's bound by the two plates of the cavity. There's also squeeze states of light, where that's a laser beam, where you're going to take some part of canonical noise fluctuations from out of that part of the beam you're not interested in and pile it up elsewhere in the phase space, and this is getting really technical.
So what Eric Davis is saying here is he starts explaining how they can manipulate the vacuum energy, the 0-point energy, using lasers. He actually starts explaining that you can use a laser and you can potentially pull the vacuum energy away, and now you've got a negative energy laser. Huh. Pretty interesting. Oops, that was not the right thing. Delete that comment. Okay. And so he's explaining negative energy to Eric Burleson, who seems pretty interested.
So I'll just kind of keep it this way. You're going to take the quantum vacuum fluctuation that we know is strong noise, or shot noise, and laser beams. You're going to pile it up somewhere else in an area you're not interested in measuring. And you only want to measure the amplitude of that beam. And at that point, when you take the quantum vacuum fluctuations out of that amplitude, that energy density goes negative. And the energy density is the square of the amplitude. So that goes negative. And that's an example of negative energy. The mass of the Earth creates space-time curvature.
If it was, I'm sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, so that space-time curvature, which we feel is the force of gravity on the surface of the Earth, drags down quantum vacuum fluctuations in the quantum fields that are out in space near the Earth, in the vicinity of the Earth. And that energy density happens to be negative. And so this is an example of theoretically predicted astronomical sources of negative energy as well as laboratory sources of negative energy. So that's what you would need to build a world. And that's what you would need to build a construct a shell.
Just a brief comment.
So he's explaining negative energy, and all of a sudden, Avi Loeb is sitting there going like, giving weird looks, like putting his head in. Why is Avi Loeb interrupting? Why is Avi Loeb interrupting Eric Davis here? And yeah, the very first thing I'm going to do right after this is write a letter to YouTube and get them to issue a formal apology for whatever the hell happened tonight, because it's completely unacceptable that I'm being throttled and like I'm getting false copyright strikes on my content. I'm not even sharing anything. There's no excuse to be copyright striking me right now. In fact, there's no way in hell you can copyright strike that open public hearing. There's no copyright strike to be made, claim to be made on what Eric Davis is saying right now. This right here cannot be copyrighted, so I don't know why anyone would. So anyway, Avi Loeb all of a sudden here.
We have two pillars, modern physics, quantum mechanics and Einstein's theory of gravity, which is curvature of space-time.
Right.
We don't have a reliable theory that combines quantum gravities. What we are hearing is speculation. We do not have the knowledge to figure out if you can create curvature of space-time out of negative energy density.
What the fuck is Avi Loeb talking about right here? This is the weirdest shit. I'm going to end it on this tonight. I had a better rant. We're going to maybe do a live stream tomorrow. It depends how I feel. I'm pretty pissed off at YouTube right now that they fucked over my live stream. But what the fuck is Avi Loeb doing right here? Interrupts Eric W. Davis. This is a UFO hearing where Eric Davis is a whistleblower saying he has inside information he can't reveal because he has NDAs. And Avi Loeb comes in here and says, this is all speculative. None of this is real. That's what Avi Loeb is doing right here. Why are you even here, bro? Why are you even here? Serious talk. Why is Avi Loeb even on this panel? If I'm going, who's out of place on this panel? Avi Loeb is the guy. And I'm not saying this to slight him. He just has no place being here, and even less place interrupting the world's leading expert in wormholes and warp drives while he's explaining how to manipulate space-time. So what do you, this either is like, I don't know if this is just like, actually, I do know what happened here. My opinion is that Avi Loeb is panicking right here because he's got me in his head. I'm living rent-free in his head right here. And he's hearing Eric Davis talking about negative energy. And he's going, this guy, Ashton Forbes, was on an X Space like 3 days ago, yelling at me about how I need to listen to Eric W. Davis explain negative energy. And how Eric Davis explained how to make negative energy in the lab. And Avi Loeb saying how it's an exotic substance. I literally told Avi Loeb this days before this hearing. So I know why he's interrupting. He's interrupting because he's like, oh shit. He's thinking about me going, yeah, this is what I was telling you, bro. This is what I was telling you. And he's having a panic attack over it. Or he's a gatekeeper. Or he's gatekeeping here and he's Mossad. And the moment Eric Davis starts talking about negative energy, he goes, I got to shut that down.
Because we have never mastered this technology. We don't have an understanding of that. So it's possible that, a millennium from now, we'll have those quantum gravity engineers. That's possible. Currently, we're just like too primitive technologically.
We can't understand that alien technology. We don't have an understanding. Bro, speak for yourself, Avi. Speak for yourself, man. You don't understand it. Eric Davis definitely understands it. He's building secret technology for defense contractors, or he was 25 years ago. This was crazy. Oh, we don't have this technology. It's like 1,000 years in the future.
To figure it out. The question is there something in possession of government that the scientists should look into? And I would love to help government figure it out, because it may guide us about the theory of quantum gravity.
So I can't decide. Like, the more I was or am, I guess, a big fan of Avi Loeb, but now the more I'm looking at this, like, the more he's just screaming gatekeeper. The guy is too smart to be pretending like he doesn't understand the situation. He's interrupting a guy that's a PhD physicist himself, who actually works on black projects, who's actually whistleblowing at that exact hearing. And you're interrupting him, telling him that this stuff's not proven and it's not real, and that maybe we'll understand it in 1,000 years. There's a very clear narrative that's being painted, at least to me. The clear narrative is that we can't understand this technology. This technology is magical alien technology. But then you hear stuff like Hal Puthoff on Joe Rogan and say there's no different physics in the Andromeda galaxy. The physics is still the same there. The aliens still abide the same physics we do. So if they can understand it, we can understand it. So, guys, are we down again? Yeah, we're down again. Okay. We're going to call the stream there, guys. I'm sorry that the end of the stream didn't really work out. I don't want to have to rehash any more stuff. So we're just going to call the stream there, and then we will potentially pick it up tomorrow. We'll see how I'm feeling. Really unbelievable. If you are upset about the live stream situation on YouTube, please send a complaint to YouTube. Let them know they messed up. Let them know they need to apologize or whatever they've got to do. Absolutely unacceptable. Absolutely unacceptable. Hope you guys have a great night. Thank you, guys. Thank you, everybody on Pilled. Thank you for the donos there. Thank you on everybody on Rumble, if you're following on Rumble. And thank you for the donations on YouTube. I am just going to go through them real quick, even though the people can't see the messages, because I just want to know, thank them for the donations. Thank you, Chaotic Good. Thank you, David R. Yeah, if there is everything that is empty space would not be empty space. Wyona Riders, was I censored on the Joe Rogan comments? Maybe. Boozer, thank you for that donation. W, thank you for that. Mike, thank you. I don't know. Oh, probably Hal told Joe not to talk about certain stuff. Halliburton, thank you very much. Chaotic Good. Yeah, Halliburton. They made a lot of money. Thank you, Z Dennis. Catherine Fitz says they're underwater bases. Yes. We got War Ranch. Yes. Thank you very much. Wyona Riders, Phase 5 authorizes the initiation of high-risk asset retrieval operations. Sincere Sentinel. I don't know what that all means. Thank you, though. And then thank you guys for the last donos. Okay, guys. Thanks, guys. Have a good one. I'll see you guys later. Peace, everybody. Whoa.
Out in the fields where the skies are wide, talking about a journey through the cosmic ride. Einstein and Thorne, they set the stage for a trip through time across the space age. Wormholes connect distant points in space, traversable paths to a far-off place. No black holes pull, no crushing weight, just a cosmic tunnel to a distant gate. Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy, travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Bowling 777 through a wormhole flow. Exotic matter, negative energy's the key to stabilize the wormhole for you and me. Quantum vacuum squeezed so tight, creating conditions for this wondrous flight. Static fields and lasers forces in a new kind of way. Gravitational squeezing, Casimir's force, negative zones we need to stay the course.
Talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
Thin shell formalism plates so fine. Spherical geometry we realign. Energy conditions that we must defy. For a stable wormhole, let's give it a try. Forces balancing the plate, creating the throat, open the gates, from Earth to the stars in a single bound, a shortcut through space profound. Engineers and dreamers hold the key to future worlds and what we could be. With science in hand, we forge ahead through the cosmic paths that we now tread.
We're talking wormholes, stargates, negative energy. Travel through the cosmos, it's our destiny. MH370, where did it go? Boeing 777 through a wormhole flow.
From the fields to the stars, we break the chains. Understanding the universe, we make the gains. Lil Hula Crunk shines, bringing truth to light. Through his music, we'll explore the night. With wormholes and stargates, our path is clear. Exploring the cosmos.